The disappearance of the Norse settlements in Greenland remains one of medieval history's most compelling mysteries. These settlements, established by Eric the Red around the late 10th century, flourished for several hundred years before vanishing without any definitive explanation. In 986, Eric the Red, an Icelandic outlaw, established the first Norse settlement in Greenland after being exiled from Iceland. His descriptions of Greenland as a fertile and lush land encouraged settlers to join him, despite the island's harsh climate. These settlers founded two primary colonies, the eastern settlement near modern-day Qaqortoq and the western settlement near Nuuk. At its peak, the Norse population in Greenland was estimated to be as high as 5,000 individuals, though estimates vary wildly. The settlers were primarily farmers who raised livestock such as cattle, sheep, and goats. They're thought to have supplemented their diet with seals, fish, and seabirds. Archaeological evidence, including church ruins and farmsteads, shows that the Norse built sophisticated communities with European-style architecture. Christianity was a cornerstone of their society, with stone churches and even a bishopric established in Greenland by the early 12th century. Despite their initial success, the Norse faced significant challenges. Greenland's marginal environment was far less hospitable than Eric the Red had portrayed. The settlers dealt with short growing seasons, nutrient-poor soils, and a climate that was always on the edge of being too cold for farming. Nevertheless, for several centuries, they managed to adapt, relying on trade and hunting for survival. By the late 13th century, however, environmental and economic conditions began to deteriorate. The medieval warm period, which had allowed for farming in Greenland, transitioned into the Little Ice Age, a period of global cooling that made the island's already challenging environment even harsher. The growing seasons shortened, and sea ice made trade and travel increasingly difficult. With fewer ships arriving from Iceland and Scandinavia, the Norse became more isolated, losing access to essential goods like iron and timber. By the 15th century, the Norse settlements in Greenland were abandoned. Several theories have been proposed to explain their disappearance, each backed by varying levels of evidence. The Little Ice Age is often cited as a key factor. With colder temperatures, farming became less viable, and the Norse struggled to feed their livestock. Overgrazing and deforestation likely exacerbated the environmental challenges, leading to soil erosion and reduced agricultural output. Archaeological evidence shows a shift in their diet from domesticated animals to seal meat, indicating that the settlers were increasingly reliant on hunting as farming became unsustainable. The Norse economy in Greenland depended heavily on trade with Europe, particularly for luxury goods like walrus ivory, which was exchanged for supplies. However, the rise of alternative trade routes and the decline in demand for walrus-based ivory diminished Greenland's importance in European markets. As trade diminished, the settlers lost access to critical resources that couldn't be locally produced. The arrival of the Inuit Thule culture, who migrated into Greenland around the 13th century, may have created tension. While the two groups interacted, there's evidence of Inuit tools in Norse sites and vice versa. Some researchers suggest competition for resources could have led to conflict. That said, there's only circumstantial evidence that the groups engaged in any meaningful form of conflict. For instance, Norse weaponry has been found at Inuit sites, which some have speculated indicates some form of conflict, or raiding by the Inuit against the Norse. However, detractors of this theory point out that this could just as easily be explained as being the result of trade rather than any form of conflict. Another prominent theory is that the Norse didn't simply disappear, but instead were absorbed into Inuit communities. Under this theory, the Norse who didn't integrate into Inuit communities ultimately returned to their ancestral homelands in Iceland and Scandinavia. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the Norse has given rise to numerous speculative theories as well. One such legend suggests that the Norse settlers fell victim to an apocalyptic event, such as a massive storm or plague. One particularly persistent theory claims the Norse were annihilated by Inuit warriors in a sudden and brutal conflict. While this theory is popular, archaeological evidence and written historical record indicate that conflicts between the two groups were likely limited to raids if they occurred at all. Another theory, again not grounded in evidence, posits that the Norse may have ventured westward and reached North America, where they eventually blended into indigenous populations. English sweating sickness was a mysterious and deadly condition that struck England and later parts of Europe during the late Middle Ages and early Renaissance period. It first appeared in 1485 and recurred in several outbreaks until it vanished in 1551. The first outbreak coincided with the end of the Wars of the Roses and the rise of Henry VII to the English throne. The disease caused widespread panic as it quickly claimed thousands of lives, including notable figures such as two Lord Mayors of London and several members of the English nobility. Henry VIII was deeply fearful of the disease, and it influenced his policies and movements throughout his reign. His elder brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, is suspected to have died from the illness in 1502, which dramatically altered the line of succession in English history. Also, as a quick aside, the Tudors, being of Welsh origin, chose the name Arthur as the heir apparent to the English throne. This is thought to have been an attempt to enhance a Welsh claim over the English throne. Also, it raises the question as to what regnal number would have been used for a 16th century King Arthur. But I digress. Let's get back to the mystery. The disease was marked by sudden and severe symptoms, starting with a sense of dread, followed by cold shivers, intense sweating, headache, severe body pains, and exhaustion. The initial trembling and high fever were followed by profuse sweating and a rapid decline into extreme fatigue and thirst. Unlike the bubonic plague, the sweating sickness did not cause visible sores or rashes, which added to its mysterious nature. Treatments of the time, based on the humoral theory of medicine, involved wrapping patients in heavy blankets to induce sweating and avoiding certain foods and mists thought to be harmful. If a patient survived the first 24 hours, they had a good chance of recovery, but many succumbed within that critical period. Despite its terrifying grip on Tudor England, the sweating sickness remains less well known than other historical epidemics like the Black Death. Its sudden disappearance after 1551 only adds to the mystery. The disease's swift vanishing act left a legacy of fear and speculation, influencing literature and popular culture long after it had gone. For instance, Shakespeare's play Henry IV Part II mentions a character dying of a sweat, potentially reflecting the lingering memory of the disease in the public consciousness. Over the centuries, numerous theories have been proposed regarding the cause of the sweating sickness. Some historians and scientists speculate that it could have been a form of hantavirus, which also presents with rapid onset fever and respiratory distress. These viruses are primarily found in rodents, and humans can contract the disease through direct contact with a variety of rodent-related sources, including their droppings. Others have proposed that the outbreaks could have been caused by anthrax poisoning. In favor of this theory, it's speculated that spores from this bacterium might have contaminated raw wool or animal carcasses, infecting people who came into contact with these materials. Another theory points towards enteroviruses. Enteroviruses are a group of viruses that typically enter the body through the gastrointestinal tract and can cause a range of diseases. They're known for their ability to cause sudden epidemics with high fever and systemic symptoms, aligning with historical accounts of the sweating sickness. Some researchers suggest that an unknown or extinct strain of enterovirus might have been responsible for the outbreaks, given the rapid onset and resolution of the disease. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here, just quickly reminding you to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. Now let's get back to the content. Originating in 12th century England, The Green Children of Woolpit is a contemporaneous tale that describes two mysterious children who appeared in the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. Their unusual green-tinted skin, incomprehensible language, and peculiar habits have inspired numerous interpretations, ranging from plausible to the fantastical. The story is primarily recorded in two medieval chronicles, Ralph of Coggeshall's Chronicon Anglicanum and William of Newburgh's Historia Rerum Anglicarum. Both authors were contemporaries of the events, lending the tale a degree of credibility, though their writings are often laced with the embellishments typical of medieval chroniclers. According to the accounts, the events took place during the reign of King Stephen, who reigned between 1135 and 1154. Woolpit, the village at the center of the legend, derived its name from the wolf pits that were used to trap wolves. Personally, I think they should have kept the name Wolf Pit because it sounds ridiculously metal, but I suppose that wasn't a determinative factor circa the 12th century. The story begins when two children, a boy and a girl, were discovered near said wolf pits. They were reportedly found by villagers who were harvesting crops. The children's skin was described as being green in color, their clothing was strange and unfamiliar, and they spoke an unintelligible language. The villagers brought them to the home of Sir Richard de Calne, a local landowner, where they were cared for. Initially, the children refused to eat any food offered to them, displaying an aversion to all common medieval fare. However, they eventually ate raw green beans, which were likely a staple in the diet of agricultural communities at the time. As they adapted to their new environment, their greenish hue faded, and they began to eat a broader diet. Unfortunately, the boy grew ill and died shortly after, while the girl survived, was baptized, and provided her account of the life of her and her brother. After learning the local language, the surviving girl revealed an astonishing tale. She claimed that she and her brother came from a land called St. Martin's Land, a place of perpetual twilight. According to her, everyone in St. Martin's Land had green skin, like theirs. She described how they were herding their father's cattle when they heard a loud noise, which transported them to the strange world of Woolpit. They wandered in confusion until they were discovered by the villagers. The girl eventually assimilated into English society, marrying a local man and living a relatively ordinary life. Her later years are undocumented, but her earlier testimony left an indelible mark on medieval folklore. The tale of the Green Children has been the subject of intense scrutiny and debate for almost a millennium now. Historians, folklorists, and scientists have proposed numerous explanations, ranging from plausible historical scenarios to imaginative speculative theories. One of the most widely accepted theories is that the children were Flemish immigrants. During the 12th century, a large number of Flemish settlers lived in England, many of whom faced persecution. These Flemish communities often spoke Dutch or other Germanic dialects, which would have sounded incomprehensible to the English-speaking villagers. The green tint of their skin could have been caused by malnutrition, specifically anemia, exacerbated by their dietary habits. The children's description of St. Martin's Land may have referred to an actual location in Flanders, or been distorted through translation and time. Another theory suggests that the children were suffering from a medical condition. Chlorosis, also known as green sickness, was a type of anemia prevalent in medieval times. Iron deficiency can give the skin a pale or greenish hue, aligning with the descriptions in the story. Once the children began eating a more varied diet, the girl's health improved, and her skin tone returned to normal, supporting this hypothesis. Under this theory, the children were likely local English children who had been abandoned in this malnourished state. Further, their initial garbled speech is explained as being caused by severe malnutrition. Supernatural or folkloric interpretations of the events are also common, and have been for as long as the mystery was known about. In medieval England, tales of fairies and supernatural beings were widespread. The Green Children's story fits into the larger context of folklore involving mysterious beings from otherworldly realms. The perpetual twilight of St. Martin's Land recalls descriptions of the fairy world, which was often depicted as being beneath the earth. Their green skin could symbolize their otherworldly origins. In modern times, the Green Children have been reinterpreted through the lens of what I will very loosely term science fiction-based ideas. Some have suggested that they were extraterrestrial beings who accidentally arrived on Earth. Others have suggested that they were from an alternative dimension, or were time travelers who slipped through time from some dystopian future where the sun is blocked out. Still others have speculated that the Green Children of Woolpit is a retelling of a local legend by chroniclers who didn't understand the cultural context of the story. Check out my alternative channels, Lazy Chill Zone and Lazy Chill True Crime, for more content. If you want to support my work further, please consider checking out the YouTube membership or Patreon.